Medical anomalies, bizarre conditions that baffle modern doctors. Before we dive into the deep end of medical nightmares, I have a question for you. Have you ever had a strange medical symptom that a doctor just couldn't explain? It doesn't have to be anything crazy, maybe just a weird pain or a strange rash that disappeared for no reason. Let me know down in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to read your stories. And while you're down there, if you like a good scare and enjoy diving into the unknown, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss a single descent into madness. It really helps the channel out a ton and lets me keep bringing you these twisted tales from the dark corners of reality. Now let's begin. We put an incredible amount of faith in the flesh and bone that carries us through the world. We assume, without a second thought, that our bodies will follow a certain set of rules. We expect our lungs to breathe, our hearts to beat, our skin to heal. We live inside this biological machine, trusting it to function as designed. But what happens when the machine goes haywire? What happens when the blueprints get scrambled, when the very code of our being contains a glitch that turns life into a waking nightmare? Tonight, we're not talking about the diseases you see on posters in a doctor's office. We are venturing to the furthest, darkest fringes of medicine, to the places where science has no easy answers. We are exploring the medical anomalies, the bizarre conditions so profoundly strange, so terrifyingly real, that they leave the most brilliant doctors baffled, staring into a void of the unknown. These are the stories of bodies in rebellion against themselves, of minds that have become prisons, of conditions that sound like fiction but are the horrifying reality for a few unlucky souls. Our first journey into this world of biological chaos is a condition with a name that sounds almost elegant, a cruel deception for the horror it represents. It's called fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, FOB. But most people who have heard of this nightmare know it by its simpler, more chilling name, Stone Man Syndrome. Take a moment and think about the last time you got hurt. Maybe you bumped your arm against a doorframe, or tripped and scraped your elbow. You felt a flash of pain, you might have gotten a bruise. In a few days, it faded. Your body's miraculous repair system went to work, cleaning up the damage, regenerating tissue, and making you whole again. It's a process so common, so automatic, that we never even think about it. For someone with FOP, this fundamental process of healing is the trigger for their own personal horror story. When their body is injured, the repair system doesn't just fix the damage, it makes a terrible mistake. The damaged muscles, the torn ligaments, the bruised tendons, they don't grow back as soft, flexible tissue. They begin a slow, monstrous transformation. They turn into solid bone. This is the central, cruel truth of FOP. It is a rare genetic disorder where the body systematically replaces its own soft tissues with bone. It builds a second skeleton, a cage of bone that grows over and around the original one, locking the body in place, piece by agonizing piece. Every injury, no matter how small, can kickstart a new flare-up, a new unwanted branch of this internal, bony prison. A simple fall on the playground for a child with FOP isn't just a matter of a few tears. Here it could be the event that fuses their shoulder joint forever. A routine vaccine injection could trigger a sheet of bone to grow across their back. Even the simple act of a muscle stretching too far can be the beginning of the end for that muscle's movement. The sheer psychological torture of this is hard to wrap your head around. The body's own defense mechanism becomes its destroyer. A parent's every instinct is to keep their child safe. But how do you protect a child from the world itself, from the inevitable bumps and scrapes of growing up? Each one is a roll of the dice, a potential step toward total paralysis. One of the most famous and tragic cases of FOP was a man from Philadelphia named Harry Eastlack. He lived from 1933 to 1973, and his life was a slow, documented process of turning to stone. It began when he was just a boy. At around 5 years old, he broke his leg. It was a common childhood injury, and it was set in a cast. But when the cast was removed weeks later, the doctors were horrified. The bone hadn't just healed. A grotesque, excessive growth of new bone had formed, locking his knee and hip in place. This was just the beginning. Throughout his childhood and into his adult life, the flare-ups continued relentlessly. Bone grew across his back, fusing his vertebrae together until his spine was a single solid rod, forcing him into a permanently stooped posture. His jaw slowly locked shut, piece by piece, until he could only open his mouth a few millimeters, forcing him onto a diet of liquids for the rest of his life. By the time he reached his late 30s, Harry was almost completely encased. The extra bone had fused his elbows, his shoulders, his hips. He was a living statue, with only the ability to move his eyes, his lips, and his fingers. Inside this stone prison, however, his mind was perfectly clear, sharp, and aware. He was a conscious observer of his own body's slow, deliberate self-entombment. When he died from pneumonia at the age of 39, his ribcage had become so rigid he couldn't expand his lungs enough to fight the infection. He chose to donate his body to science. His skeleton is still on display today at the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia. It is a haunting, terrifying sight. You can see it clear as day, his original skeleton, and then this second alien skeleton that grew over it, a web of bony growths that consumed him. For decades, doctors were utterly mystified. What could cause a body to do this to itself? We now know it's a mutation in a single gene, a tiny error in the genetic code. This gene, the ACVR1 gene, is supposed to be a master switch for bone growth during fetal development, turning on to form the skeleton and then switching off. In people with FOP, that switch is broken. It's permanently stuck in the on position, so anytime there's an injury, the body gets a massive incorrect signal. Emergency, build bone here now. And here is the ultimate medical checkmate, the part that makes FOP so uniquely horrifying and untreatable. You cannot simply cut the extra bone out. The very act of surgery, the cutting of muscle, the trauma to the tissue, is a severe injury. And what happens when the body of an FOP patient is injured? It triggers an explosive, aggressive growth of new bone, often far worse than what was there before. Trying to remove the prison only makes the walls thicker. There is no cure. The life of a person with FOP is a life of extreme caution, a constant negotiation with their own treacherous biology, knowing that any small misstep could steal another piece of their freedom, another degree of motion, until there is none left at all. From a prison of bone, we descend into a prison of the mind. Our next anomaly doesn't petrify the body, it annihilates the self. It's a delusion so total, so profoundly bizarre, that it challenges our very definition of what it means to be alive. It's called Cotard's delusion. You probably know it by its other name, walking corpse syndrome. This is not a metaphor. It's not a feeling of being dead inside. People suffering from this terrifying psychiatric condition are utterly, unshakably convinced that they are literally dead. They believe they are a walking corpse, that their flesh is actively rotting off their bones, that they have no blood, no organs, or that they simply do not exist in any meaningful way. It's an erasure of the self from the inside out. Try to imagine what that must be like. You wake up one morning and the world feels different. It's muted, gray. You look at your hands, and they don't feel like your hands. You see your reflection in the mirror, and while the face is familiar, there's no connection. It's like looking at a photograph of a dead relative. You feel no hunger, no thirst, no pain, no pleasure. The world seems to carry on around you, but you are no longer a participant. You are a ghost, a spectator. A terrifyingly logical, albeit insane, conclusion begins to form in your mind. The living need to eat. I don't feel hunger. The living feel emotions. I feel nothing. The living have a sense of self. I have none. Therefore, I must be dead. This is the nightmare logic that takes hold. The delusion is so powerful, it overrides all evidence to the contrary. Patients have been known to stop eating and drinking entirely, convinced that as a corpse, they have no need for sustenance, leading to very real physical starvation. They may stop speaking, because why would a dead person need to talk? They may frequent cemeteries, feeling it's the only place they truly belong. They might neglect all personal hygiene, allowing their physical bodies to decay in a grim, self-fulfilling prophecy of their internal state. The documented medical cases are chilling. One woman in the 19th century, known as Mademoiselle X, who was the first case described by Dr. Jules Cotard, claimed she had no brain, no nerves, no chest, and was nothing more than a decomposing body. She denied the need to eat and eventually died of starvation. A more modern case involved a man in Scotland. who after a severe head injury from a motorcycle accident became convinced he had died and been transported to hell. He believed his mother, who was lovingly caring for him, was also a spirit in hell with him. Even the warmth of the Scottish summer he interpreted as the heat of damnation. What leaves doctors so utterly baffled is the sheer impenetrability of the delusion. How do you argue with someone who believes they don't exist? The very fact that they are standing in front of you, breathing and talking, is a direct contradiction to their belief, but it doesn't matter. Their mind has an answer for everything. You could show them their own pulse on their wrist, and they'd say it's just a residual twitch. You could let them hear their own heartbeat with a stethoscope, and they might claim it's just an echo or the sound of a machine. Their reality has been completely rewritten with death as the central premise. Neurologists have a working theory about what might be happening in the brain. They believe it's a profound disconnection between two critical brain regions, the fusiform gyrus, which is like the brain's facial recognition software, and the amygdala, which is the emotional processing center. In a healthy brain, these two are constantly talking. You see your reflection, and the fusiform gyrus says, "That's my face," while the amygdala instantly provides the emotional tag, the feeling of familiarity, of selfhood. And that's me. In a person with cotards, it's thought that this link is broken. The fusiform gyrus correctly identifies the face in the mirror, but the amygdala provides no emotional response. There's just a void, an empty space where the feeling of me should be. And in that terrifying silent void, the conscious mind scrambles for an explanation. The only one that seems to fit the profound sense of detachment is the most extreme one possible. That person cannot be me because I no longer exist. I am dead. Treatment is incredibly difficult. It often involves a combination of powerful antipsychotic and antidepressant medications. In some severe cases, electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT, has been shown to be effective, essentially acting like a hard reboot for the brain's malfunctioning circuits. But for the duration of the delusion, the person is living in their own private purgatory, a ghost in their own machine, haunting the world they no longer feel a part of. Now let's journey from the chaos of the mind back to the betrayal of the flesh. Our next condition takes the most essential substance for life, the very symbol of purity and renewal, and turns it into an instrument of torture. We are on average 60% water. Our cells are bathed in it. We must drink it every day to survive. But for an incredibly small number of people on this planet, water is the enemy. They suffer from a condition called aquagenic urticaria. Put simply, they are allergic to water. Just let that concept settle in your mind for a second. An allergy to water. This is not like a peanut allergy, where you can meticulously avoid peanuts. Water is fundamentally unavoidable. It falls from the sky. It flows from our taps. It comes out of our own bodies in the form of sweat and tears. For someone with this condition, any contact between their skin and water, regardless of its temperature, its purity, or its source, causes an intensely painful reaction. Within minutes, their skin breaks out in angry, red, incredibly itchy hives and welts. Imagine the simple daily rituals of life transformed into agonizing ordeals. Taking a shower is not a relaxing experience. It's a frantic, timed mission to get clean as quickly as possible, knowing that the moment you step out, you will be consumed by an hour or more of burning, itching pain as your body reacts. Washing your hands becomes a dreaded chore you put off as long as possible. A hot, humid day is a special kind of hell, as your own sweat becomes a source of torment, creating a rash all over your body. Getting caught in a sudden rainstorm is a genuine emergency, and crying, the most basic human expression of profound emotion, becomes a physically painful act as your own tears scald your face. People with this condition are forced to live a life of constant defense. They limit showers to once or twice a week, and for only a minute or two. They have to carefully blot themselves dry, as rubbing with a towel is too painful. They become amateur meteorologists, constantly checking the forecast, never leaving the house without an umbrella. They can't go swimming, can't enjoy a day at the beach, can't relax in a hot tub. Their world shrinks, defined by the need to stay dry. What truly stumps doctors is that they don't actually understand what's happening. It's not a true allergy in the classical sense. A typical allergic reaction involves the immune system releasing a chemical called histamine. But when doctors test the blood of people with aquagenic urticaria, their histamine levels are often normal. The standard treatment for allergies, antihistamine pills, usually provides little to no relief. There are a few competing theories, none of them proven. One idea is that it's not the water molecule itself, but some unknown substance dissolved in the water that triggers the reaction. This seems unlikely as people react even to highly purified, triple distilled water. A more compelling theory suggests that the water interacts with a substance in the top layer of the patient's skin, perhaps an oil or a protein. This interaction creates a new, toxic compound that the body then has a massive inflammatory reaction to. In essence, their own skin creates a poison when it gets wet. The body is attacking itself, triggered by the most life-sustaining molecule on Earth. The psychological toll is immense. The constant low-level anxiety, the social isolation, the feeling of being a prisoner in your own home on a rainy day. It's a life lived in opposition to the very nature of our planet. You must drink water to fill your body from the inside, but you cannot let it touch you on the outside. It is a profound and cruel biological paradox, a condition that turns the source of all life into a source of unending pain. We've seen a body become a cage of bone and a mind that believes it's a corpse. Now we turn to a neurological rebellion, a condition that feels like it was ripped straight from the script of a body horror film. This is a disorder where a person's own limb, most often a hand, seems to develop a will of its own, acting with clear, intelligent purpose, but completely against the person's conscious desires. This is alien hand syndrome. Imagine this. You're sitting at the table reading a book. You reach for your coffee cup with your right hand. As you bring it to your lips, your left hand, without any command from you, shoots out, grabs your right wrist and tries to force you to pour the hot coffee on your lap. You have to physically fight your own body, your right hand struggling against the grip of your left. Or perhaps you're getting dressed. Your right hand buttons your shirt, while your left hand follows behind, methodically unbuttoning it. You aren't telling it to do this. You are horrified, watching your own limb act as if it's being controlled by someone else. This is the deeply unsettling reality for those with alien hand syndrome. The person does not feel that the hand is numb or paralyzed. They can feel everything it touches. They know, logically, that it is attached to their own arm, but they experience a total and complete loss of control over its actions. It moves as if it has its own mind, its own agenda. Sufferers often talk about the hand in the third person, calling it, or giving it a nickname because it feels so separate from their own consciousness. The actions of the alien hand can be simple and repetitive, like constantly stroking the person's face or fiddling with their collar, but they can also be incredibly complex and antagonistic. The hand might grab objects and refuse to let go. It might stuff food in the person's mouth when they aren't hungry, or throw things across the room. In the most disturbing cases, the hand can become self-destructive. There are documented reports of the alien hand slapping the person, pinching them, or even trying to choke them in their sleep. The person literally has to use their good hand to peel the fingers of their bad hand from their own throat. This terrifying condition almost always appears after some kind of brain damage, like a stroke, a tumor, or brain surgery, specifically when the damage affects the communication between the brain's two hemispheres. Your brain is split into two halves, a left and a right, and they are connected by a massive bundle of nerves called the corpus callosum. This is the superhighway that lets the two halves talk to each other and coordinate their actions. In a healthy person, they work as a seamless team. Your left hemisphere, which controls the right side of your body, is typically the dominant one for language, logic, and our conscious sense of self. It's where your inner monologue lives. The right hemisphere, controlling the left side of the body, is more involved in spatial awareness and non-verbal tasks. When the corpus callosum is cut or damaged, that communication breaks down. It's like two different pilots are in the cockpit, but the intercom system is broken. Each one can fly their half of the plane, but they can't coordinate. So your conscious language-based left brain decides, I want to drink my coffee. It sends the signal to your right hand. But your right brain, now acting on its own silent subconscious impulses, might have a different idea. It might see the coffee as a threat, or simply have a random urge to interfere. So it sends a signal to the left hand to stop the right hand. The conscious person, whose awareness resides in the left brain, experiences this as a complete shock. Their own hand has become a rogue agent, acting on the hidden will of the silent half of their own mind. Alien hand syndrome offers a chilling window into the nature of human consciousness. It suggests that our feeling of being a single, unified I might just be a story told by the dominant, speaking part of our brain. When that storyteller is cut off from the other half, we see that another, more primitive will can emerge and take control of the body. There is no cure. People learn to manage it by keeping the alien hand busy, making it hold a cane or a ball. Some even wear an oven mitt over it to prevent it from causing harm. They are forced to live in a state of constant vigilance, forever tethered to a limb that is both part of them and a terrifying, unpredictable stranger. Next, we venture into a realm of pure genetic terror, a disease so horrific in its mechanism that it seems impossible. It attacks the most fundamental of human needs, something we all require to reset our minds and heal our bodies. It steals sleep. This is fatal familial insomnia, FFI. The name is a brutally honest summary of the disease. It's genetic, passed down through families. It is 100% fatal, and it kills you by completely and permanently destroying your ability to sleep. This is not the kind of insomnia where you toss and turn for a few nights. This is a total biological shutdown of the sleep process. It is a prion disease, in the same family as mad cow disease. Prions are not viruses or bacteria. They are misfolded proteins. They are like tiny biological zombies. A single rogue prion can bump into a healthy protein and cause it to misfold into the same monstrous shape. This sets off a chain reaction, a cascade of misfolding that spreads through the brain, leaving it full of tiny sponge-like holes. In FFI, the prions specifically target a deep brain structure called the thalamus. The thalamus is the brain's central relay station. It's crucial for managing sensory input, and most importantly for regulating the sleep-wake cycle. The prions literally eat the sleep center of the brain away. The disease typically lies dormant for decades, striking in middle age, usually between 40 and 60. The first symptom is simply an inability to fall asleep. A person who has been a good sleeper their whole life suddenly finds themselves awake all night. Sleeping pills, even powerful sedatives, have no effect. The brain simply will not switch off. As weeks turn into months of zero sleep, the body and mind begin to completely unravel. The person is plunged into a waking nightmare. They suffer from extreme panic attacks, paranoia, and vivid, terrifying hallucinations that blend seamlessly with reality. They are trapped in a hellish twilight state, neither fully awake nor capable of the sweet oblivion of sleep. The physical decline is rapid and devastating. They lose massive amounts of weight. They develop dementia. They lose the ability to walk or even speak coherently. But for much of this horrifying process, they remain conscious, a terrified passenger inside their own collapsing mind and body. The entire process, from the first sleepless night to the final breath, usually takes between 7 months and 2 years. Death is the only possible outcome, usually from a secondary infection like pneumonia, as the body, deprived of any chance to repair itself, completely gives up. What makes FFI a unique form of psychological torture is its genetic certainty. It is caused by a dominant gene. If one of your parents has it, you have a 50-50 chance of having it too. And if you inherit the gene, the disease is not a risk. It is an inevitability. It is a ticking time bomb coded into your very being. Imagine finding out this curse runs in your family. You watch your father or your aunt die this slow, sleepless death. Do you get tested? Do you live the rest of your life knowing for sure that this is your fate, just waiting for that first sleepless night? Or do you live in the shadow of not knowing, where every bout of normal insomnia sends a jolt of pure terror through you? There is no treatment. There is no cure. You cannot stop the prions. FFI is a brutal genetic lottery. It is a sentence of death by exhaustion, a slow, conscious disintegration with no hope of reprieve, a chilling testament to how a single, microscopic error in a protein can lead to one of the most horrifying fates imaginable. From the certainties of genetic doom, we move to a mystery that lives in the strange, foggy territory between physical disease and psychological phenomena. This is one of the most bizarre and controversial conditions of the modern era, a battleground where patients and doctors often stand on opposite sides of a vast divide. This is Morgellons disease. The story of Morgellons begins with the skin. People who suffer from it report a truly disturbing set of symptoms. It starts with an unbearable sensation of crawling, biting, or stinging under their skin. They have a constant feeling that insects or parasites are moving just beneath the surface. This is accompanied by painful skin lesions and sores that appear without obvious cause and are incredibly slow to heal. But the defining and most controversial symptom is the appearance of strange fibers. Sufferers report that tiny thread-like fibers, often described as being red, blue, black, or white, emerge from these sores. They describe pulling these filaments from their skin, which sometimes feel attached as if they are growing there. Many also report a collection of other debilitating symptoms: crushing fatigue, severe joint and muscle pain, and a profound cognitive impairment they call brain fog. To the thousands of people who identify with these symptoms, Morgellons is a terrifying and very real physical illness. They feel they are infested with some unknown pathogen. They collect the fibers in jars and on tape to show to disbelieving doctors. They form vast online communities, sharing photographs of their lesions and the fibers, supporting each other, and desperately searching for an answer, a validation of their suffering. They feel like victims of a silent, unacknowledged epidemic. Here is where the deep, baffling controversy begins. The overwhelming consensus in the mainstream medical community is that Morgellons is not a new or distinct disease. Instead, they believe the symptoms are the manifestation of a known psychiatric condition called delusional infestation, also known as delusional parasitosis. This is a powerful delusion where a person holds an unshakable false belief that they are infested with bugs, worms, or other pathogens. From this medical perspective, the entire constellation of symptoms has a psychological explanation. The crawling sensations are tactile hallucinations, the mind creating a physical feeling that has no physical cause. The skin sores and lesions are not caused by an underlying disease, but are self-inflicted, created by the patient's constant scratching, picking, and digging at their own skin in a desperate attempt to remove the imaginary parasites. And the infamous fibers? The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention conducted a multi-year study into the phenomenon. Their conclusion was that the fibers collected from patients' skin were not strange, unknown biological growths. They were overwhelmingly identified as cotton and other textile fibers, likely from clothing, blankets, or bandages, which had become embedded in the open, self-inflicted sores. The study found no common underlying medical condition or infectious source. This has created a painful and seemingly unbridgeable gap. On one side, you have a large group of people experiencing genuine, life-altering suffering, who feel their reality is being denied and dismissed as madness by the very doctors they have turned to for help. On the other side, you have a medical establishment that, based on all available scientific evidence, sees a pattern consistent with a known delusional disorder. So what is the truth? That is the baffling question at the heart of Morgellons. Is it possible that there really is some novel infectious agent, a strange fungus, a resilient bacteria, a new kind of parasite, that our current science simply isn't equipped to detect? A handful of researchers continue to pursue this line of inquiry, sometimes finding associations with tick-borne illnesses like Lyme disease. Or is this a tragic and powerful example of a psychogenic illness, a condition where profound mental distress manifests as devastating physical symptoms? Could it be that the internet has allowed people with similar, unrelated symptoms and anxieties to coalesce into a community that reinforces a shared, powerful delusion? The honest answer is that we don't know for sure. The suffering is real, the pain is real, the despair is real. Whether it's caused by a mysterious pathogen or a mysterious delusion, the people who identify as having Morgellons are trapped in a medical no-man's land, fighting a battle that is either against an invisible invader or against their own minds, all while being told that the war they are fighting isn't real. We have walked through a gallery of biological horrors tonight. We've seen a body build its own stone prison, a mind that signs its own death certificate while still living, and a world where the touch of water is agony. We've witnessed the civil war of alien hand syndrome, the guaranteed sleepless death of a genetic curse, and the bewildering mystery of Morgellons. These conditions do more than just scare us. They force us to confront the profound fragility of our own existence. They show us that the complex symphony of biological processes that keep us alive and feeling normal is a delicate balancing act. A single gene misplaced, a single protein misfolded, a single neural connection broken, and the entire reality we take for granted can shatter into a nightmare. The people who endure these anomalies are living on the furthest frontier of human experience. Their stories are not just tales of suffering, they are testaments to the strength of the human will in the face of the body's ultimate betrayal. They serve as a stark and humbling reminder that the greatest and most terrifying unknowns may not be in the dark woods or the empty alleyway, but deep within the microscopic code of our own cells, waiting silently in the dark. Thank you for joining me on this unsettling journey. If you made it this far, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next exploration of the unknown. Stay safe and try to sleep well.